Hi, everyone. Welcome to Convergence Labs. I'm Susan Butler. Just to quickly describe myself, I'm a mixed race Black woman with a kind of loose curly afro, and there's an abstract print on the wall behind me. I'm really pleased to be with you today for this. I am a writer and an artist, and this 3 video kind of flash course is called Creating Powerful Writing. In these 3 videos, I'm going to offer you some of my thoughts on how you can create strong stories, poetry, and scripts that really connect with your readers. We only have a short time for each video, so I want to focus on specific tools that will make your writing stronger and more impactful starting today. As I mentioned, creating powerful writing is going to come in 3 parts. So this first one, we're going to focus on starting from yourself, from your own life and experiences. In the second video, we'll focus on making your writing stronger. And of course, there are a million tips out there that you can find, but that'll be a collection of some of my favorites. And finally, our third video will focus on developing a practice and becoming a writer. And I hope that that one will be filled with lots of really useful hints and tools for you. So let's go ahead and dive in. In this first video in our series, we're focusing on starting with yourself. We'll start with the importance of observing yourself and your own point of view with non-judgmental interests. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean by that in a sec. I'll ask, what are the stories and character types that really interest you? And what are some of the ways of working, which might be a bit unconventional, but totally feel genuine and authentic to you? And once you can really connect with how you like to work, what you like to work with in terms of material and form, but also the ways that you like to make your work happen, you'll find your practice really, really starting to flourish. So just a little bit about myself, which I hope will also have some useful transferable information for you and your writing practice. This picture is actually from a performance that I made called More from Beyond Than From Above. So as well as writing novels, short stories, and experimental poetic texts, I'm also a performer. And this image is from a performance that I did as part of the research process for my first novel. For it, I went to a place that's similar to the setting of that book, and I wrote for one day at the edge of the cliff, nonstop, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And so what this gave me was this like immediate sense of what the main character would see and hear and smell and experience throughout the story. And so not only did I end up with some beautiful typewritten pages, of course, I mean beautiful to me. Beauty is subjective. That's an idea we're going to talk about in a minute. But I also generated a lot of material that went into the final draft of the novel. And so this was my first novel. It's called Signet. The word signet is the word for a young swan. Um, and I'm definitely one of those writers who's a little bit afraid of the blank page. And one of the ways that I deal with that is that I don't let the first page be blank. I often start with an existing story. This one is based on The Ugly Duckling, and put my own spin on it, put it through the filter of my own life and make it relevant to me. So these are some of the ways that I started writing my first novel in, both conventional standard ways, sitting by myself with my laptop, but also using my own ways of being in the world to really make the process something that I can do that feels authentic to me. So plenty of writers use themselves, their own personality, their friends and family, and their own experiences as starting points for their work. It's very common and it has various advantages and disadvantages. Some of the pros are that ideas coming from your own life will be meaningful to you. And that's an emotional investment that will come through in the work. And then it also means, once again, that you don't have to come up with a story from scratch every time. Some of the cons are that we often refuse to address weak points in stories that are based on our own life, stories, poems, scripts, whatever form you're working in. Instead, we might be more loyal to telling a story exactly as it happened, and that can mean sacrificing some connection with the reader. So that's something to look out for. Also, when we cast a version of ourselves as the main character or the point of view of a poem, at times our ego can get in the way. But we'll look at some ways of dealing with that. So here's something to think about when you start writing from your own unique self. Um, Many creative writing teachers use this as a point of focus. Your I, as in the phrase I am, and your your seeing, experiencing, observing optical organ. So, some things to consider. You know quite a bit about yourself, so it can be easy to forget that the reader doesn't know you at all. The person who you calls I needs to be introduced through carefully selected details. So try to look at yourself from a distance as you start to write. Can you list your positive traits and flaws without judgment? Try and think about the elements that make you a complex human being. Don't be over humble about your strengths, and don't be in denial about your flaws. And finally, begin to observe your own subjectivity. And that's your unique way that you see the world. So we can see this as the I of the you as a character. So I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago that beauty is subjective. One of the things that you can ask yourself as you're creating a character based on yourself is, what are some of the things that you find beautiful that others might not? So I'm wondering if we can have a look at how this works in a poem. And I chose this one, Poem Where I Be and You Just Might by Dennis Smith. I'm sitting next to you and you are not there. You're a frameless heat, mass of ruptured air. To be clear, you are the spit and liver it takes to be human, and I want it, and I think you want me to have it all, but I know what it's like to be one of the few blacks. For miles, I know what our people think about me, or maybe us, I know. God's flaming eye, I stare into it always, dying to blink, irises cracking like commandment stones. I get it, I get it. And it might be how you say my name like a testimony, or how I graze your hand and yours doesn't move, but my body made up a rumor about your body and wants to prove it true. Forgive him. So, thinking about the poem that you just heard, let's focus for a moment on the I, the personal I, the I am. What do we know about the speaker in the poem? How do they convey details about themselves, their upbringing, where they live, their sexuality and desire? There were some details that seem to relate to nature, to religion. Those are some things that really resonate through and give us some detail about the speaking I, the person who is giving over their point of view. We can also ask, does the speaker's voice sound generic, as if it could be anyone, or like one real specific person? And for me, the feeling of a unique, distinctive, natural voice really comes through. And then let's think about the I. So, what's distinctive about the speaker's subjectivity, the unique way in which they see the world? And I think that the detail was very carefully selected through this poem. So, have a look at it again if you have some time and see if you can see a relationship between the and the I of this poem. Sometimes we think that writing something exactly the way it happened is the strongest approach, but often leaving many things unsaid, like we saw in Dennis Smith's poem, or taking artistic license can give us much more imaginative room to maneuver. And so I quite like looking at this quote by the 19th century poet Emily Dickinson to sort of explain what I mean. She says, "Tell all the truth, but tell it slant." So in order to make sure that you're really choosing details that serve your story, rather than maybe the real life events that your story, your poem, or script were based on, here's the little thing that I like to do. When writing a story, poem, or script based on your own experience, it can be helpful to bring in one distinctly fictional element into the work. So, for example, Signet, my first novel, is based on some of my own life experiences, but I chose to set the story on a fictional island, and this instantly gave me greater freedom to tell a story rather than just recounting memories. And then the whole field of possibilities opened up for me. So, to round off, I would like to recommend a daily practice of getting to know yourself and doing this by keeping a notebook or a journal that you write in regularly and frequently. So, here's something that I heard another novelist say once that I think might be helpful. Conventional wisdom tells us to write what we know, and that's fine. But I think it's best to think about writing not necessarily what we know, but what we're obsessed with. And this was said by Joanne Ramos, who's the author of a novel called The Farm. So, my suggestion, my invitation, is keep a notebook and write down your thoughts at the bus stop or while you're waiting for your food in a cafe. And notice what you notice. Write down your observations, big and small. And after a few days, look at those observations. What makes you angry, and how does that anger feel? What brings you pleasure? How do you uniquely see the world? In short, what are you obsessed with? So I want to close this little flash video with a quote from one of my all-time favorite writers, the sci-fi author Octavia Butler. I love how she says, "Every story I create creates me. I write to create myself." So hopefully this video will have given you some tools and some ways of thinking if you want to start your writing practice grounded in your own experience. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.